Hello, my name is Alfred Favor, a student at the Nations University in the Computer Engineering Department, and I'll be taking you through how to solder your coaxial cable to your Yagi Uda antenna. So, from the things you've purchased, you either have your SDR or your handheld radio, your coaxial cable, and your antenna. Okay, so this is the coaxial cable that you bought, which has a 50 ohms cable and a 50 ohms connector, the male SME connector on both sides. There are different types of radio connectors. We have the SMA connectors, and here we have the SMA male connector and the SMA female connector. The SMA male connector has a pin to differentiate it from the SMA female connector, which has this hole here. Okay, so here this is how the coaxial cable looks like. We have the outside insulation, the copper mesh, the insulation here, also known as the dielectric, mostly white in most of our coaxial cables, and we have the copper wire here too. Okay, so this is the coaxial cable we bought, and we have the male on both sides, so we just need half of it to make your antenna connection. So you can just cut it if you measure it and cut into one pattern. Okay, so after cutting, now we have the handheld radio or the SDR, which both have the female SME connectors. So you can either use the handheld radio and the male SME together, or the SDR female SME and the male SME connector. So after that, we'll solder the other part of the coaxial cable to the antenna. Okay, so this is the driven elements, just as we've been told in the other videos, and then we'll be soldering two parts on the driven element. One part is the core from the coaxial cable, and the other part is the ground from the coaxial cable. Okay, so I have the cutter and which I'm going to use to peel the coaxial cable to get the ground and the inner core. And you have to peel it carefully so as not to damage the ground in the coaxial cable. Okay, so this is the ground. Goes in the ground and the coaxial cable. And I'll peel and try to get the core too. You also have to do that one carefully so you don't break the inner core. So you trim the dielectric neatly to get the copper core and the mesh, which is the ground. So right now I'm going to twist the mesh for it to become a single line, so it will be easy for us when soldering to our antenna. Okay, so in this part I'm going to be using the soldering iron, the soldering lead, the coaxial cable which we've already prepared and the antenna itself. But if you don't have the soldering iron, you can choose to go to any electrician and show him on your antenna the parts which you want him to solder for you. Okay, so we're going to be soldering our coaxial cable to our antenna directly. But some people find it difficult to solder due to the elements they are using. But yeah, we're using a measuring tape element, and sometimes we find it difficult. That's why we scraped this part. But you can choose not to if you're able to solder it directly. Okay, so for best practice in engineering, you have to use our ESD, that's the electrostatic discharge strap, and connect it to our electrostatic mat to prevent any hazard in engineering. But if you don't have in your school, that's fine. You can still do your soldering, but make sure that you are not barefooted when doing your soldering. So we are going to continue with our soldering right now. So at this point, we are going to solder the ground part of the coaxial cable to the driven element, and the copper lead to the driven element. So we'll take it one by one. Okay, so after soldering the ground to one side of the driven element, we are going to solder the copper core to the other side of the driven element. Okay, so the two pins on the driven element have nothing to do with the soldering. They are just used to fasten the driven elements to the antenna pole. Okay, so for demonstration purposes, my soldering may not be very neat, but since you have time, you can do a neater work by adding more leads and doing the soldering properly. But for the antenna, I'm going to use mine this way. But if you have glue gun in your school or in your place, you can also make a neater work by adding glue to it to prevent environmental damages to your antenna. Okay, but it should work just as it is because we have the radio line soldered and the ground soldered properly. So if you don't want to use the glue gun, you can work the same way. Okay, so some people, after designing the antenna, they decide to use the coaxial cable to join the ground and the core together. That's a balun, BALUN. It's used for matching, radio matching. So you can decide to check on it in your spare time if you want to find out more. Okay, so it's soldered to the ground part on the driven element and the core part on the driven element together. But for me, I'll use my antenna this way because it works just fine. Okay, now I'm done with the soldering and the connections for the antenna. I'm going to connect the antenna to the handheld radio, the male connector to the female connector this way. Or you can also use it with your SDR this way, the female connector and the male connector together.